Four-dimensional space. do you do you want to go there? In auto manufacturing, every vehicle out there has what's called a vehicle center line. That is 3 points in space. I said we're starting with 4 points. There's time. But the three coordinates, the three prime coordinates, are X, Y, and Z axis coordinates from a 0 point on your automobile. Everything in the drawing and mechanical drawing world is referenced from this 0, 0, 0 point, X, Y, and Z coordinate of 0, 0, 0. It's relative to the car. Now, knowing that 0, 0, it most of the time ends up being somewhere in the engine compartment. Another company might use that 0 center line is dimensional dead center of the final vehicle. So if you see CL on a drawing next to a number, that denotes it's the center line for some reason, but it's a relative center. It's a relational center to a 0 point on a car body. So why does that make, and I added time in there because some of these things change subtly over time. You get a new engineering manager that decides every product from here on in is going to go to some other standard. So now you need to keep a back reference for all the old drawings. So why this matters. Someone out there is designing a fender in three-dimensional space that is tied exactly to that center line. To this draftsman, the fender sits all by itself. Everything he does sits by itself. Where he puts the bolt holes and the screws and the antenna hole is to exactly where that fits on the car body, how it looks, how the antenna angle is correct if it's on a so all of those details are being done in a three-dimensional space. Fourth, if you add time into it. But as an engineer, you have to keep that body center line reference in perspective. Always. You have to know exactly what it is, where it is. That body center line is how you set equipment on the floor. You pick a theoretical point in space where you have to have that car body, and you set all of the equipment around very exactly so it can work off of that 0, 0 line. Now you have a requirement, not a hard requirement, but to eliminate issues, you want all of these things in synchronicity across an assembly line, knowing kind of what's going on at some level. It might be at a supervisory level, somewhere upstairs, something's being watched, and you can get a notice of misfits and correct those misfits in process because of little errors like this on the missed detail of which body center line you're referencing to. Because parts have center lines. You can confuse a part center line for a body center line, or forget the reference to the 0. Did that make it any easier? Now why this matters, this is data. This is almost geospatial data. If you know where in time that thing was built, and if you know bad parts were put on it in that time, you can very specifically do a recall on 100 cars instead of 10,000 cars. This is the way that body center line, that 0, 0, 0 point, relates back to your vehicle purchase and the longevity of it. That 0, 0 line ties back into motor parts, how the engine was built, how the rear end was built. Each one of them had their own center lines, a reference point for every single dimension from that point, even with tolerance specifications from that dimension, so that you can account for heat expansion in the tiny, tiny, tiny little layers that you have to consider heat expansion. So, an introduction to something. Peace is out.